Hello, my name is Keith, aka LoLByTheNumbers, and welcome to another 2014 League of Legends World Championship video analysis. Once again, this is a video analysis, not a shoutcast, so there will be plenty of spoilers being presented throughout the analysis. I'll be looking primarily at macro level strategy, in particular team compositions, their win conditions, how teams should do and don't pull these off throughout the match. I'll also be looking at objective control, map rotations, how to take turrets, as well as the occasional individual matchup, item choice, and individual play when it becomes apparent that these are paramount to the win or loss of a team. This is going to be Samsung White for Team Solo Mid. I finally reached the bracket stages for my video analysis, and this is going to be the first match in the quarterfinals. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into picks and bans. If you're interested, my notes on the pregame matchups can be found linked below, as well as on my portal page, but I'll try and cover a little bit of it through each game during the picks and bans. One thing I stated a lot is that I really felt Samsung White should be banning out Orianna, and we do see them picking Orianna as their first ban. The big reason for this is Orianna is pretty much a linchpin in a lot of Team Solo Mid strategies. She works great with Rumble for the disengage comps. She's very strong in Team Solo Mid's Deathball Protect the ADC team compositions. Taking out Ori, it almost completely denies the Protect the ADC comps, especially since we don't see Bergerson playing Lulu mid very often. So this is a great ban from Samsung White, and if I remember correctly, we do see it every game, and this is one of Samsung White's win conditions as a team against Solo Mid. The other bans, Lee Sin Rumble, fairly generic, just taking out Rumble, making sure that Dyrus is put on the back foot, especially since Team Solo Mid end up banning Maokai. You have Alistar, Zilli, and Maokai. I really would have preferred to have seen TSM not ban out this Maokai. Make sure that they have a top laner in the trifecta of Ryze, Maokai, Rumble that they could play. We've seen Lulu do very bad in the group stages of matches, though at least from the top lane, and though TSM were able to use her once effectively, compared to statistics, it's not going to be a good pickup for them. On Samsung's White side, we see them first picking Ryze. This is a great pick. They set up their bans for this. When Team Solo Mid banned Maokai, this essentially told Samsung White pick Ryze, and that's what they did. Team Solo Mid, on the other hand, grabbed Janna, Kha'Zix, two very solid champions, Kha'Zix being the go-to jungler when Lee Sin is down. So these are very generic, just decent picks from TSM. Samsung White side, we see Elise and Thresh. Samsung White are grabbing the jungler, they're grabbing the support. This means that they're not giving away any of their picks, and they're going to be able to counterpick two choices from TSM, as well as Elise being a solid jungler in certain compositions, and Thresh being all-around great support. On TSM side, we see them picking up Lulu and Lucian. This Lulu is a little bit of a flex pick. I really would have loved to have seen them running it in the middle instead of the top lane, but we do end up seeing Lulu top. Lucian's also a very solid pick, works well into this Twitch pick. Goes good with Janna. Lucian works well against Thresh. Very big bully lane for TSM, and so they should be looking to make sure they can get the 2v2 duo lane. This will be a huge benefit to TSM's team, and pretty necessary because their last pick doesn't fit too well within their composition. On Samsung White's side, we see their final pickups are Twitch Jace. These are decent pickups. The pickup of Twitch essentially should be telling TSM that they're going for the 2v1. We know that Lucian and Janna can be big bullies against them, and Twitch wants to be able to get that solo EXP in the top lane so that he's able to perform his assassinations better throughout the mid game. The pickup of Jace is a new pick for Samsung White, but it's one to be expected. Throughout World Championships, we've been hearing about this back pocket Jace pick, and we see it coming into play here in this match. Samsung White are bringing out the heavy guns right away. It's sort of shock and awe tactic. If they can win with this Jace, it really hampers TSM's morale. On TSM's side, we see them picking up Zed. I really dislike this pickup. It doesn't fit into the team composition of TSM. as well as Zed being easily counterable by Quicksilver Sashes, by Zhonya's. So Zed sort of hits this spike in power up until the other team picks up these items, and then he has to wait until he's about 5 or 6 items before he can just kill people without having to rely on his ultimate. So there's really an issue of timing going in with this Zed pick. On top of that, the Jace pick allows Samsung White to grab a second exhaust, so Zed is going to have to jump into 2 exhausts. This means on almost every team fight, his power is going to be significantly hampered. So once again, this pick is just kind of awkward. I would have rather have seen something like Syndra. Syndra's on the board. She's much safer. She can poke from range. If she gets a solid stun onto Jace, she's able to try to all-in him with her ultimate. She can look for pick potential. With the Janna knock-up as well, it doesn't necessarily work too well with TSM's team, but it offers more safety as well as more lane power than Zed will be. The flip side to this is also, since Zed is a split push champion and he's moving into a Ryze and a Twitch, this makes it kind of difficult for him. Ryze picking up defensive items pretty naturally, getting the Frozen Heart. Potentially he could even go for a Randuin's Omen, though we rarely see this against the Zed, just to sort of double up on the armor since Lulu's damage isn't going to be that high. This also goes into the fact that Twitch, with his stealth, can very easily make lane ganks, and he's a strong assassin able to fight Zed almost on equal footing. Just depends on whose summoners are up, who gets the jump on the other, as well as factors like where the walls are in the matches. So this is the compositions we've gotten. Aside from Syndra, I also would have liked to have seen Lulu in the middle against Jace. Could have easily harassed him, could have used shields to block out some of the poke. Has very fast push potential to counteract Jace's fast push potential. As well as then this would allow TSM to pick something up top better suited to fight Ryze, maybe move more into the protect the ADC composition. You could have seen something like Aurelia coming out to give some very good solid mid-game power, or even something really off the ball like Mundo for that tanky lineup that TSM kind of need. But this is what we end up with. Before getting into team compositions, I want to talk about this level 1. Anytime TSM should be expecting the lane swap, and they should be looking for it in this matchup. Worst thing that they could do is they go top with their 2v2, and then TSM are the ones ending up initiating the lane swap. They wait till Lucian gets a pickaxe, then he swaps bottom, and now TSM is in the area for dragon control. It's no worse than if Samsung White were to lane swap top and TSM doesn't. The big thing that comes into play here is that TSM noticed this lane swap too late. Elise is able to get her red buff while Samsung White take the red buff of TSM. Samsung White have now created a 3 buff start for their team, severely hampering Kha'Zix. This is very unfortunate for TSM's team, and we're going to see this not only in this game, but in their second match, and it won't be until the third match until they learn. Any time a lane swap is going to be initiated, you need to sniff it out, and then have your jungler start on the strong side of the enemy team's buff. If Kha'Zix had been prepared for this, instead of starting at his blue buff, he could have started at the red buff. It would have been a 4v1. Now they guarantee a double buff start. Also noticing that they have messed up this start, TSM could potentially look for some strong power. Right now they have 4 people on the bottom lane. They could be pushing this turret and attempting to take it down right away. This would at least give them something in this early game to make up for what they are losing. And so that is a bit of a misplay in the early game of this match, and is going to be an issue for TSM throughout the match. The other big issue with this is the fact that Ryze does better than Lulu in the lane swap. Not necessarily because he's able to get more CS or anything, but because Ryze is able to grab that early tier. Since Ryze starts with Monocrystal and it's only a few hundred more gold to move into that tier. By the time he's done moving through the jungle and the double jungle, he's able to get to the lane with the Tear of the Goddess. If he can't, regardless of whether or not he's able to get CS, he can use his skills on the golems. He could throw his skills out on the creeps or heroes whenever possible. He's going to start scaling, even by the passive effect of the Tear of the Goddess, into past his weak mid game of his mana scaling phase, and getting past the weak mana scaling phase. On the flip side, Lulu has to get CS and experience to start scaling up, so this gives a little bit of a benefit to Rise in the 2v1 lane swaps, and why he's so good as a top laner. So this is something to take note of just in champion matchups. Alright, having talked about the level 1, the lane swaps, and how it's gone a bit this way, let's get into team compositions. Samsung White have a very heavy sort of pick-focused team composition. Rise, Thresh, and Elise are very strong at getting picks. One snare can lead into a cocoon, lead into a hook. This very easily turns into a solid amount of damage onto the champion. Jace is able to provide great burst with his Shock Blast, so Samsung White are ever able to land a CC onto a target, and it's almost guaranteeing at least half their life is gone, without the requirement of any ultimates being used by Samsung White. And so this is a strong point of their team. On top of that, Twitch has a very strong mid-game. Once he picks up that Blade of the Rune King, he's able to look for assassinations. In this situation, we can see him killing Kha'Zix, Lulu, potentially even Lucian, though it's going to be more difficult. It's very much going to depend on who has their summoners, how quickly Lucian can react to Twitch showing up, and what the items are at that point. But this does give Samsung White the option of looking for the picks. Through taking jungle control, vision control, they can find places to have Thresh and Twitch provide a solid assassination kill, with Jace providing his long-range burst damage from the mid lane. He doesn't even really need to get out of the mid lane to hit certain areas of the jungle. As for scaling, Samsung White's team have really solid scaling in Rise and Twitch. They will both very much be able to carry in the late game. We know Twitch can be a hyper carry, and we definitely know Rise gets very tanky and heavy DPS. On top of this, since Rise also builds somewhat tanky, Thresh also is tanky, you end up with this pseudo front line that Samsung White can create with Elise, Rise, and Thresh. It's almost like having two tanks where you have one tank in Elise if she builds full tank, and then half tanks in Rise and Thresh in the late game. This very much counteracts what TSM's team is going to be. They aren't going to have any tanks on their side. The best you can look to see happening is one Randuin's Omen coming out onto Kha'Zix, and then Lulu offering her protection. So in the late game, Samsung White definitely have the better team as well, while still having solid mid-game potential. Their win condition is going to be survive the early lanes, as Lulu can bully Rise, Lucian and Janna can easily bully Twitch, Thresh, and Zed, Jace is pretty even. Jace is safe. As soon as Samsung White pick up the Tears of the Goddess on Rise and Jace, they just need to look to scale at that point. Around the 18-20 minute mark, Samsung White will hit a huge power spike. Rise should have finished off his Rod of Ages, and it should have a couple stacks on it. Jace should have finished his Miramane, that's now moving into, or he finished his Manamune, which is almost about to be his Miramane. Twitch has his Blade of the Rune King, potentially almost his Yomos Ghostblade, and now Samsung White have a huge power spike and can use it to start to take control of the map. The other big thing that Samsung White's team have going for them is the poke and siege potential, and most of this is relying on Jace. The other side to this factor is that TSM have very weak engage. They have to throw themselves in there, and they're squishy champions. TSM's best form of engage is going to be Zed or Kha'Zix going all in and then getting Lulu ultimate. This is very deadly for TSM because if Jace can hit even one shock blast with his acceleration gate before this engagement happens, TSM lose all ability to engage. This is doubly affected so by the fact that Samsung White are running 2 exhausts. Anytime Zed or Kha'Zix try to engage, an exhaust goes down and TSM lose massive amounts of power. This is the problem when you're not running any type of tank for engagement. You fall very hard to poke, and we see this poke coming out from Jace. Samsung White can simply look to group up near turrets, have Jace use Shock Blast Acceleration Gate, and then the rest of their champions can try and hit the turret very easily, mainly because there is a lack of wave clear on TSM's side. It's very short range in Zed and Lucian. The best wave clear they have is Lulu, but Lulu's going to be distracted by Ryze for most of the game. This also works in Samsung White's favor, is if Lulu is distracted, Ryze is much stronger than Lulu throughout most portions of the match, and will be able to beat her in the 1v1 and keep her at her turret. So that's Samsung White's win condition and their team composition. To reiterate, Samsung White have a pretty weak early game, but they will start to scale up, and around the 8 to 10 minute mark, things are going to get more even. If they can survive until about the 20-minute mark, when the Tears of the Goddess have been stacked and their items have been built, then Samsung White can start to look for jungle control and for picks. Use Thresh, Twitch, Ryze, Elise to catch one person out in TSM, particularly in map rotations, and then take a lane advantage. Go after a turret 5v4. The other choice is for Samsung White to simply siege. This is part of their win conditions. Let Jace get his poke, wait till TSM are too low to defend, and then take a turret. So moving over to TSM's side. And before I do that, I want to mention Elise with her Sightstone. I like to mention this a lot when any jungler picks up Sightstone. I do approve of an early Sightstone. Elise has picked this up for the 10-minute mark. It allows her to make full use of this vision control, especially in denying ganks from Kha'Zix, denying ganks from Zed, as well as just looking for her own opportunities. In a couple of matches in the group stages, we have seen junglers picking up Sightstone near the 20-minute mark. I really disagree with this because at that point you've lost a lot of the early game power that vision gives you, and that money would be better spent simply picking up some green wards and looking for combat statistics. So on TSM's side, my win condition to them is win game, or win lane, win game. And I like to give out this win condition when I dislike a team's composition very heavily. There's almost no synergy in this TSM team. They do have some very strong mid-game power in Lucian and Zed and Lulu. However, they don't have any CC to lock people down. Their slows are even weak, so they're looking entirely on burst and assassination potential. And with the double exhaust on Samsung White's team, as well as having Thresh and Elise to peel, it's unlikely that TSM are going to be able to use this assassination burst potential. Zed will be heavily denied. Lucian is going to have a difficult time getting in to use his damage, as a quick snare from Ryze can lead into a hook, can lead into a cocoon, and he can very well be shut down. And we see how fast Samsung White is able to put out the damage right here. That dragon drops in seconds before TSM can even respond with this Lulu on the top lane. And this is going to be the same worry TSM have if they try to dive into Samsung White's team without a solid tank to soak up this huge upfront damage that comes out of Jace, that comes out of Elise. TSM don't have a hope really to engage onto Samsung White's team. So TSM, they do have a strong early game. So what they need to do is they really need to make use of it. They had to have found their 2v2 duo lane and their 1v1 with Lulu. Lulu had to fight Ryze. Lucian Janna had to fight Twitch Thresh. They needed to turn this into a CS lead, potentially even kills and experience. And this would have allowed TSM to transition into the mid game where they can start to use their lead at Dragon once they get the lead at Dragon, transition into side lanes, send Zed top to fight Ryze pretty quickly, move Lulu in to fight Jace as she'll be much better able to defend Jace's push, and then let Lucian and Janna take the bottom turret since they will be overpowering Twitch and Thresh. This would be a much greater way to contain Samsung White's team. And then as soon as TSM is able to get that bottom turret, Lucian and Thresh can now move top or middle, take out the next turret, and then follow suit with the third. As we see, TSM is able to get that bottom turret, and this is the strength of Lucian Janna over Thresh, and why they should have found this lane matchup right away. The problem is on the top lane, while Lulu does do better against Ryze in the early matchups, having talked earlier about that difference that being able to pick up that tier of the goddess and scale early on makes for Ryze against his top lane opponent who doesn't get any gold or real value out of the 2v2 jungle, or the two-man jungle. So this is a problem, and where not only Lulu's weakness as a champion in the top lane, but also the level 1 play from TSM come to bite them in the butt. This play by TSM was very strong. They had the teleport advantage. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite work out, and we see Zed going a little deep and getting slightly outplayed. Now, TSM probably should not have used that Janna ultimate. Janna should have saved it. They didn't have vision on where the rest of the team was coming in from Samsung White, and then she could have used it to disengage and then flash out. Instead, since she used it to secure the kill, it comes back and ends up getting her killed. So TSM's team, if they can get ahead, they're going to really need to bully lanes quickly. Their least secure window of time is going to be when Samsung White have gotten their Tears of the Goddess stacked up. And this right here probably could have been a really good spot for TSM to start to take that early lead. If you look closely at the replay, there was no reason for Janna to be using that ultimate. They just needed 1 or 2 hits onto Elise. She could have saved it, and it would have been a big potential in that upcoming fight afterwards, knocking Samsung White away and allowing TSM to escape. The one thing that TSM could have going for them is the Zed split push. He's going to be the strongest split pusher in this sort of early mid game. They have to make sure that Ryze doesn't get too far ahead, and have to keep good vision of Twitch. So it would be paramount for TSM to focus ganks onto this Jace and try and get Zed a lead early, or to focus ganks onto Ryze and keep him behind. Unfortunately, neither of these happened. So right now, TSM are kind of in a bad spot. We're closing in on the 20-minute mark, where Ryze and Jace have scaled up their mana items, and Samsung White will soon be hitting a very strong power spike. As we see, Ryze and Elise, they can chain their CCs as talked about before to get a pick. There's lots of burst damage. This Janna went down very quickly. And this also comes to another effect of vision control. TSM are trying to dive this top lane against Ryze, but they have no vision on the rest of Samsung White's team. They don't know where Elise is, they don't know where Thresh is. When they see Twitch on the bottom lane by himself, they can kind of assume that Thresh is missing, and probably from there figure out that he's near the top lane at least, especially considering TSM have shown their 3-man squad up there for quite a while. So that's the team compositions, and TSM have already essentially lost their win condition, which was win game, or win lane, win game. They don't have anything to fall back onto in terms of a composition, especially considering they can't dodge out on Jace's poke. If Samsung White simply group up, they have all the siege potential, and we see it doing a third HP to Janna and Kha'Zix just in one hit. So where do we go from here? We can go through a lot of skirmishes. TSM could potentially look to send Zed and Kha'Zix into awkward angles on Samsung White's team, looking to pick people off in the jungle with an assassination. Just look to try to catch Samsung White out in some weird map movements when they're trying to move from one objective to the other. Unfortunately, this also means that they won't be able to protect their own objectives, as they have to really get some sort of Metal Gear Solid sneak attack. So it's not the best option, but it might be the only option for TSM at this point. If they sit and defend turrets, they're going to lose. If they try and fight at dragon objectives, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. They just don't have options because of their team composition. Now, whereas if TSM had, instead of this Zed, picked up a Syndra, picked up a Xerath, they could fight poke for poke. They can look for this pick. It would have offered a lot more for their team. They could have had some better wave clearing, could have defended, even though they're not looking at the late game. So it's, there's nothing really for TSM to fall back on, and essentially they have lost the game at this point, even though the gold score is pretty close, even though they're even on turrets and we're closer on kills earlier. So going from here for Samsung White, all they need to do is objective control and map movements, and we will see them doing this. Anytime Dragon is up, they simply go take it. After that, they pick a turret, push it down. Right now we have the middle turret is the only one left, so Samsung White should be looking to take that middle turret while they take vision control of TSM's jungle. They have to decide which side of the jungle they want to take, be it the red side or the blue side. Either one will work and provide pick potential with Elise, Thresh, and Ryze. All the while, Jay sieges up turrets with his Shock Blast and Acceleration Gate and just his range damage. Samsung White also don't have to worry because there is no pick or catch potential on TSM's side. The only way TSM stop Samsung White from dealing damage to their turrets is by the all-in aggression, and as stated before, that's not going to work out very well with the double exhausts with the peel potential of Ryze, Elise, and Thresh. So that's what we're looking at here for this game. Going back a little to picks and bans and stuff, TSM haven't really crafted any type of composition. When I was originally talking about this match and before it happened, one of the big things I thought was that TSM was probably going to have the best chance to beat Samsung White out of any team in the tournament. Though I think C9 is a little bit of a better team than TSM, TSM's huge strength is in their team compositions, and whenever they grab a solid team composition, something that screams TSM, which is generally these death ball compositions, these protect the ADC compositions, or these heavy engagement where you have like 3 or 4 frontliners, as well as their long range poke compositions using stuff like Kog'Maw, Xerath, Nami, Maokai or something. These are solid team compositions that TSM is good at, and that they should have been looking to play in this match, or throughout all of this whole series rather. And that's how I felt that TSM was going to be the strongest team to beat Samsung White, is because their compositions are so good and they play them so well when they decide to play them. Unfortunately, we don't see them building a team composition in this match, and we just see them falling apart. It's a sort of a nerves thing. Once again, it's since TSM are considered to be the weaker team, I don't want to say they're not taking it seriously, but they're not necessarily believing in themselves for this first match. They're trying to outplay on an individual basis. They've built all of their lanes to win the lane, rather than relying on their team ability. It's evident in their picks and why this competition is win lane, win game. The Lucian Janna, much stronger than Twitch Thresh. The Zed is sort of a selfish pick. It doesn't offer much to your team or in a team fight, especially doesn't offer your team really anything if you fall behind either, as you can't split push all that well. And then the Lulu is also a solid pick against Ryze. but still, Samsung White is the better individual players. They went into this game with a strategy and with a team composition, and we see how well that has worked out for them. TSM can't even do anything against the Samsung White team as they siege up this turret. And this is going to be the rest of the game. Samsung White don't even have to make any tricky moves to break the turret line. A lot of times in games, when it comes in some other videos, when it comes to this situation, I'll start talking about how you break turret lines, specifically the inhibitor turrets and the tier 2 turrets. But in this game, breaking the turret line is very easy. Samsung White just send their 5-man team and siege it down. The lack of wave clear and engagement and pick potential from TSM means that Samsung White can sit at a turret for 2, 3, 4, even 10 waves if they wanted to, and they will be safe. They will get the poke damage onto TSM to force them off. Otherwise, they'll draw TSM into an engagement, and then Samsung White will win the engagement. So there's nothing Samsung White need to do tricky. They just need to push towers. So what could TSM do at this point? The answer is not much. They have nothing to fall back on. They do not have a team composition to fall back on. They don't have late game scaling to fall back on. They're essentially waiting for Samsung White to make a mistake. When you run into this situation, you have two choices. You can set yourself up for the slow, inevitable death and hope to whoever you hope to the League of Legends summoners, creators, that a huge mistake is made by the other team, and this allows you to get back into the game. Unfortunately, TSM would have to hope for this mistake to be made 3 or 4 times. That way, they could generate the gold lead, but to expect something like that to happen is almost looking for a miracle. So if you look at what TSM is doing, they are doing something great. This is what you should be doing as TSM. You know you're going to lose the fight. You know you can't defend. So trade objectives. Samsung White push into TSM's base, and they're going for the inhibitor. So what did TSM do? They take turrets in the top lane and in the mid lane. This does end up with Samsung White making the smart move of going straight for the Nexus turrets and just simply for the win. So it does come out to bite TSM in the butt, but this is proper play. If Samsung White had gotten scared, or if they had been unable to push into TSM's Nexus turrets because there was a better defense put up by Kha'Zix and Lulu and Janna and them not getting caught, then it's entirely possible that TSM trade 3, maybe even 4 turrets, taking the inhibitor turrets as well for their inhibitor. Best case scenario, they can take 2 inhibitors for the 1 inhibitor that Samsung White end up taking. This would all depend on how long Samsung White decided to try and take the Nexus and how well TSM could defend. But by making this choice, TSM are accelerating their loss or their win. Either they get the bigger trade because they take more objectives and get more map pressure, or they just lose the game quicker than they would if they tried and defend their base and let the game play out in a slow, methodical method. So this is proper play from behind, and it's one of those things that's like 20% chance of working, but your chances of survival if you don't do it are almost 0. So that's this game. I hope you take away from this the importance of the level 1 plays, how much this worked in Ryze's favor, particularly because he starts scaling on his Tier of the Goddess the moment he picks it up, even if he's not getting EXP or gold and being denied by the duo of the other team. Also take away team compositions, how important they are, how they're great to have something to fall back on, and how relying on win lane, win game strategies will make you lose very quickly if you don't pull that off. The final thing to take away is, even though it didn't work for TSM, I like their moves at the end of the game, and they are the proper moves. If you are that behind, if you know you're going to slowly lose methodically, try and make a better trade. Give up one of your objectives to try and take 2 of the other team. So with that, that's it. I hope the game was interesting. I hope you learned something. If not, I hope it was at least entertaining. Once again, the notes for this match can be found below, as well as the link to all of my 2014 League of Legends World Championship video analysis and notes portal page. I'm Keith, aka LoLByTheNumbers, and thanks for watching.